Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we are drifting toward one of the boldest ideas humans have ever dared to imagine. Terraforming is the dream of reshaping entire worlds, not in stories or myths, but through physics, chemistry, biology, and time. It asks what it would mean to turn barren planets into places where air can be breathed, water can flow, and life can take root. This is not just an idea from science fiction. It is the real understanding of how a fragile balance creates a living world and how difficult it is to build that balance from nothing. As we explore this idea, we will discover frozen deserts, crushing atmospheres, hidden oceans, and long-forgotten worlds. We will touch on human ambition, its unpredictable consequences, and the deep patience required to transform a planet. Terraforming reveals how rare Earth truly is, and how much care is required to remake even a small piece of it elsewhere. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, there's nothing you need to do but relax. Allow the day to fade away while your shoulders gently soften, and allow your mind to unwind as we explore this bold idea together. Let's begin. Terraforming means rewriting a whole world's climate, air, and oceans. It is the difference between a dead rock and a place with winds, clouds, and cycles. On Earth, temperature, rainfall, and the chemistry of the sky are all tied together like gears. If you turn one, another starts moving. That is why the idea is so immense. You are persuading a planet to behave differently, day after day, year after year. You have to manage heat, light, and pressure, while also guiding water and carbon into stable paths. Even the color of the ground matters because it controls how much sunlight is absorbed. Done well, a world can become more forgiving. Done poorly, it can swing into extremes that are hard to undo. Terraforming is also biology. Microbes can be the first planet builders. Before you can have fields, you need soil, but behaves like soil. On many barren worlds, the ground is crushed rock with sharp grains, strange salts, and no living structure. Microbes can change that. They can bind particles, create protective films, and begin the long work of turning minerals into nutrients. Some microbes also produce useful gases as they metabolize, which means biology can slowly influence an atmosphere too. The most fascinating part is how small the pioneers can be. A world might begin to change because colonies the size of dust motes find a foothold in warm cracks. In time, those tiny communities can alter chemistry in ways that larger organisms can later exploit. It is the engineering of planets that starts with life's oldest toolkit. The first step might not look like a grand project. It might look like a microscope slide coming alive. Mars is cold enough for carbon dioxide ice to snow at its poles. That sounds like science fiction, yet it is a real kind of weather. When winter darkness settles over a pole, the air itself can freeze out. Carbon dioxide turns to ice, then settles on the surface like a seasonal cap. In spring, sunlight returns, and that ice changes back into gas, so the atmosphere swells a little. It is a planet that breathes in slow motion. This matters because carbon dioxide is not only a gas, it is also a stored material that can be moved around by seasons. If you could warm the right places, you could shift where that carbon dioxide spent its time. The poles become a kind of thermostat dial. They show that even on a bitter world, the air is already in motion. A breathable atmosphere needs pressure, not just oxygen, to work. If the air is too thin, lungs cannot pull in enough molecules with each breath. Even if oxygen is present, it can feel like trying to drink through a straw with holes in it. Pressure also affects water inside the body, because low pressure encourages moisture to evaporate faster from lungs, eyes, and skin. That is why high mountain climbers face problems that are not only about oxygen, but also about the harshness of thin air. For a new world, you would have to choose a target pressure that supports biology and daily living. Too low, and people need suits. Too high, and structures become heavy and risky. This single requirement reshapes everything else, from habitat design to how liquids behave on the ground. Changing a planet's reflectivity can warm or cool it dramatically. A bright surface sends sunlight back to space, while a dark surface drinks it in. On Earth, fresh snow reflects strongly, and dark ocean absorbs strongly. That contrast helps steer winds, sea ice, and storms. If you were trying to warm a cold world, one strategy is to reduce reflectivity, so more sunlight becomes heat. If you were trying to cool a hot world, you would do the opposite. The trick is that reflectivity is contagious. When ice grows, it creates more reflection, and that encourages more cooling. When ice shrinks, darker ground appears, and that encourages more warming. This is a powerful feedback loop, and it can accelerate change once it starts. Terraforming plans pay attention to color and brightness because they are silent climate levers. A single giant space mirror could shift sunlight like a planetary dimmer. Instead of changing the air first, you could change the light. A mirror in space could redirect sunlight toward a cold target, or it could block sunlight from an overheated one. The idea is startling because it is simple in principle and enormous in practice. Such a structure would have to be thin, stable, and precisely controlled, while also surviving micrometeoroids and constant sunlight. Even tiny steering errors could move the bright spot across a planet like a wandering spotlight. Yet the appeal is clear. Light is upstream of weather. Change the light, and temperatures, winds, and ice respond without waiting for new gases to build up. It would be climate control by orbital engineering. It also raises a haunting thought. A civilization with mirrors like that could rewrite seasons on command. Even tiny amounts of powerful greenhouse gases can reshape temperatures. Not all greenhouse gases behave the same way. Some are mild, and some are like thick blankets, even in small amounts. What matters is how strongly a gas traps heat at the wavelengths a planet emits. That is why certain industrial gases on Earth, even at low concentrations, have outsized warming influence. In a terraforming context, this suggests an unsettling shortcut. You might not need an Earth-like mix of gases at first. You might need a carefully chosen trace component that does most of the warming work. The challenge is control. A potent gas that warms quickly can also overshoot quickly. Once temperatures rise, ice melts, ground changes, and other gases can begin to move, which adds complexity. It becomes a balancing act between chemistry and caution, where small decisions ripple outward into planetary scale outcomes. The biggest obstacle is time. Most plans take centuries or longer. A planet is slow. Its rocks store heat, its ice stores water, and its chemistry stores gases in stubborn forms. Even if you had the technology to push hard, you would still be waiting on enormous natural reservoirs to respond. That means terraforming is not like building a bridge. It is more like planting a forest that your great-great-grandchildren will walk through. It also means mistakes can last a long time. If you change a world in a way that becomes unstable, you may inherit a problem that takes generations to calm. Yet time is also an ally. Slow change can be safer because it allows feedback to reveal itself before it becomes runaway. Terraforming invites a different kind of ambition. It asks for patience, long planning, and a willingness to work for a future you will not personally see. A planet's oceans can swallow carbon dioxide and change air chemistry. Oceans are not just water. They are chemical engines with enormous capacity. When carbon dioxide dissolves, it forms a family of dissolved compounds that shift acidity and change what minerals can form. On Earth, the ocean acts as a buffer that can absorb some atmospheric carbon, yet that buffering has limits and consequences. In terraforming, an ocean could be a powerful ally. It can draw down carbon dioxide from the air and store it in dissolved form, then move it around through currents. It can also feed carbonate formation at the seafloor, which locks carbon away more permanently. Yet an ocean can also become too acidic, and that can make biology harder. It is a reminder that water is not automatically friendly. Water is reactive. If you add an ocean to a planet, you are adding a giant chemistry lab that will rewrite the atmosphere in its own language. If oceans freeze, they stop helping, and climate can spiral. Liquid water is a working engine. Frozen water is a parked engine. When an ocean surface freezes over, gas exchange slows dramatically, and the planet loses one of its most important stabilizers. Ice also reflects sunlight strongly, so freezing encourages further cooling. That is how a world can tip into a deep freeze that is hard to escape, even if volcanic gases or other sources are trying to warm it. For terraforming, this matters because early climates are fragile. You might be close to the melting point, where a small shift in dust, clouds, or sunlight decides whether water stays active or locks up. Keeping water liquid becomes a strategic goal, because liquid water supports weather, chemistry, and eventually biology. The gripping thought is that a planet can look promising on paper, yet fall into a frozen state that resists change. A stable ocean is not just a feature. It is a safeguard. Venus is hotter than an oven, yet it is Earth-sized and tempting. Size matters because a larger planet can hold onto an atmosphere more easily. Venus has nearly Earth's gravity, and that makes it feel like a world that could be familiar. The shock is that its surface conditions are wildly hostile, with heat and pressure that crush most earthly expectations. The heat is not mainly from being closer to the sun. It is from an atmosphere that traps warmth with relentless efficiency. That makes Venus a warning and a challenge at the same time. If you could reduce the sunlight or remove enough heat-trapping gas, you could, in theory, move it towards something calmer. There is also a strange twist. High above the surface, the temperature becomes much more comfortable. This opens visions of habitats that float in the clouds, living in a band of air that behaves more kindly. The safest terraforming begins inside domes, not across open continents. It is easier to change a room than a planet. A sealed habitat lets you control pressure, humidity, and air chemistry without waiting for global transformation. That creates a practical pathway. You can learn what crops do under different gravity. You can test recycling loops, and you can discover which materials fail over years of radiation and dust. Domes and tunnels also create safety boundaries. If something goes wrong, you can fix it without losing a whole atmosphere to space. Over time, many habitats could spread and link together. Each one would be a tiny experiment that teaches the next. This approach also respects uncertainty, because it does not assume you understand an entire world on day one. It treats terraforming as a careful staircase, where every step is supported before you climb higher. Big dreams still fit inside small beginnings. Mars has water ice in the ground across huge stretches of land. That hidden ice is like a buried inheritance, waiting for the right tools and the right warmth. In some places, it lies close enough to the surface that a future dig site could uncover bright, clean layers in the shadowed soil. In other regions, it may be mixed into the ground like frozen cement, locked into pores between grains. Either way, it changes the whole story. Water is not only for drinking. It is for growing food, making concrete, producing fuel, and shielding habitats from radiation. Ice can also become the seed of local weather if you can coax it into vapor and then back into snow or frost. A world with accessible ice is not a blank slate. It is a place with resources and with choices. The Martian sky is so thin that sound travels strangely there. Imagine clapping your hands and hearing a softer, thinner reply, as if the air refuses to carry your message. In low-density air, sound loses energy quickly, and higher pitches fade faster than low tones. That means voices would not travel the way they do on Earth, and distance would feel eerily silent. Even simple things become unfamiliar. A humming machine might sound muted, while a low rumble could carry farther than you expect. The speed of sound also changes with temperature, so a cold night and a warmer afternoon can shift timing in subtle ways. This matters for explorers because sound is a safety sense. On Earth, you can hear a leak or a crack. On Mars, you might need sensors and alarms to replace what your ears can no longer do well. Oxygen alone is risky. Too much makes fires spread frighteningly fast. Fire is not only about flames. It is about how eagerly materials react with oxygen when heat appears. In high oxygen environments, things that normally smolder can flash, and sparks that would be harmless can become dangerous. That is why engineers treat oxygen as both a life support gas and a chemical hazard. A famous lesson came from early spaceflight testing, where a cabin filled with oxygen at high pressure turned a small ignition into tragedy. For terraforming and habitats, the safer path is balance. You choose oxygen levels that support breathing, while also choosing materials, wiring, and emergency systems, but assume accidents will happen eventually. A breathable world must also be a world where kitchens, workshops, and power systems can exist without turning into fuel. Nitrogen is the quiet hero. It buffers oxygen and softens breathing. Oxygen gets the spotlight, yet nitrogen is what makes air feel comfortable and stable. It adds bulk pressure without making everything more reactive, and it reduces how violently oxygen feeds combustion. It also protects lungs from the strain of breathing air that is too thin, because pressure is what allows each breath to deliver enough gas molecules. There is another reason nitrogen matters. Life needs it for proteins and DNA, and plants cannot use most atmospheric nitrogen directly. On Earth, lightning and specialized microbes turn it into forms roots can take up. Then ecosystems circulate it again and again. A terraformed world would need a nitrogen story, not just a nitrogen tank. You would have to source it, distribute it, and eventually build a living cycle that keeps soils fertile without constant shipments. Mars is missing a thick magnetic shield, so radiation matters. Earth's magnetic field acts like a guardian that deflects much of the solar wind, and it shapes the dancing auroras near the poles. Mars does not have the same global protection today, so energetic particles can reach closer to the surface and can slowly erode an atmosphere over long times. For settlers, this is not only a distant scientific concern. Radiation affects electronics, crops, and human health, especially during powerful solar storms. That is why many serious habitat ideas favor rock cover, water walls, or underground spaces. Some researchers have even imagined building an artificial magnetic shield in space, placed where it could stand between Mars and the Sun. It is an audacious thought, like holding up an invisible umbrella. It shows how terraforming sometimes becomes space weather engineering. A planet can lose air to space, especially when the sun is stormy. An atmosphere is not a permanent possession. It is a tug-of-war between gravity holding gas down and space processes pulling it away. Light gases can leak off through slow thermal escape, while high-energy particles can smash into upper air and knock molecules into space. The sun makes this struggle more intense. Solar storms can increase particle flux and stir the upper atmosphere, which can accelerate loss. Over billions of years, This matters enough to change a planet's fate. Mars likely began with more air and more water, then gradually thinned as the planet cooled and its upper atmosphere was stripped more easily. Terraforming plans must account for this leak. It is not enough to add gases once. You need strategies that either slow escape, replace what is lost, or shelter life in sealed environments where the sky outside is less reliable. Some proposals start with warming, then let chemistry do the rest. Instead of trying to build a perfect atmosphere all at once, you can aim for the first push that makes other processes wake up. Warmth can unlock trapped gases, change how minerals react, and shift where ice is stable. Once temperatures rise, carbon dioxide can move more freely, and water can begin to participate in reactions that were frozen in place. Chemistry then becomes a workforce that never sleeps. Rocks can bind carbon into new minerals, water can dissolve gases and transport them, and surfaces can darken or brighten as materials change state. The appeal is that you are not doing every step by hand. You are triggering a cascade. The danger is that cascades can run away. A small initial change can amplify through feedback, and it can lead to a climate that is hard to steer back. That is why these proposals demand careful modeling and humility. Dark dust on ice can increase melting by lowering reflectivity. If you sprinkle something dark onto bright ice, you change how it handles sunlight. Clean ice reflects a lot, while dark grains absorb more energy and warm the surface beneath them. On a cold planet, that can be a lever. You could imagine spreading fine basalt dust, using engineered particles, or even encouraging dark microbial mats in protected places, all aimed at creating small melt zones. Once melt begins, it can feed itself. Water tends to make surfaces darker, and darker surfaces absorb more warmth. Yet this tool has sharp edges. Dust can also create crusts that insulate ice, and winds can move material in ways that defeat the plan. It becomes a story of landscape choreography. You are not only changing temperature, you are changing where sunlight lands, how it is absorbed, and how a planet's surface texture responds over seasons. It is climate control by changing the color of the ground. Bright clouds can cool a planet even while greenhouse gases warm it. Clouds are double agents. Some trap heat at night by absorbing infrared radiation, while others act like bright shields that reflect sunlight away during the day. If a cloud layer is high, thick, and reflective, it can cool a planet by cutting off incoming energy. That is why some cooling ideas focus on aerosols that seed reflective clouds, or on increasing cloud brightness over certain regions. Earth offers a clue. Volcanic eruptions can inject particles into the upper atmosphere, and global temperatures can dip for a time afterward. In a terraforming context, clouds become a steering wheel. You could imagine orbiting shades and chemical choices, yet clouds might provide the fine-tuning. They also create risk, because cloud behavior depends on winds, dust, and moisture. You might aim for a gentle canopy and accidentally generate storms, or collapse rainfall where life needs it most. Weather is not a switch. It is a living system. Terraforming always fights feedback loops. Some help, some sabotage. A feedback loop is a pattern where a change causes more of itself, for better or worse. On cold worlds, ice can create a vicious loop. More ice reflects more sunlight, which makes things colder, which grows more ice. On hot worlds, greenhouse heating can become its own trap if warming releases more heat-trapping gas. Feedback can also be helpful. Once plants spread, they can change soils, moisture, and local climate in ways that support further growth. The key is recognizing which loops you are waking up and when. Terraforming is not pushing one button. It is stepping into a room full of buttons that interact. The art is to find a stable basin where the world settles rather than slides. That is why models, experiments, and slow escalation matter. You want the planet to become self-maintaining, not self-destructive. Mars has toxic perchlorates in its soil, complicating farming plans. Perchlorates are salts that can interfere with thyroid function, and they also make the ground a chemical puzzle for anyone hoping to grow food. The challenge is not just that they exist, but that they can be widespread and mixed into fine dust. That dust gets everywhere. It clings to boots, tools, and habitat seals, so any farming system has to think like a clean room. The good news is that chemistry offers options. Perchlorates can be washed out of soil with water, then captured and processed. They can also be broken down with heat or with carefully managed reactions. The better news is that a problem can become a resource. Oxygen can be released from perchlorates, and that links farming, industry, and life support in one surprising loop. Turning regolith into soil often needs microbes, compost, and patience. Regolith is not dirt. It is crushed rock with sharp grains, almost no organic carbon, and none of the crumbly structure that lets roots breathe. Real soil is a living architecture built from decayed material, fungal threads, and sticky compounds that hold grains into airy clumps. Creating that from scratch is like building a sponge, one pore at a time. Compost provides carbon and nutrients, and it also brings a diverse community of decomposers that keep the system moving. Microbial films can help bind particles and reduce the harshness of raw mineral surfaces. You may also need amendments like biochar to hold water, plus minerals that balance pH for plant uptake. The fascinating part is the timescale. Soil is a slow technology. Each harvest can improve the next, until the ground begins acting like an ecosystem instead of a pile of powder. Plants need steady liquid water, not just ice, locked in stone. Ice is comforting on a map, yet plants cannot drink a promise. Roots need moisture in the spaces between grains, and they need it for long stretches, not in brief bursts. That is why early agriculture off Earth is likely to be engineered water, delivered and recovered in a controlled loop. Hydroponics can give roots exactly what they need with minimal waste, while greenhouses can hold humidity so evaporation stays inside the system. Even then, the timing matters. Too dry and growth stalls. Too wet and roots suffocate. Water also carries nutrients, so every drop becomes part of a chemical conversation between plant and caretaker. Terraforming stories often begin with oceans, yet the practical beginning is smaller. It is a stable sip, repeated every day, until a crop trusts the world enough to grow. Lower gravity changes bodies. Long-term settlers may grow differently. Gravity is an invisible trainer that never takes a day off. When it weakens, the body adapts. Bones can lose density, muscles can shrink, and balance systems can become confused because inner ears evolved for a heavier pull. Over years, the effects could shape not just health, but development. Children growing up in lower gravity might form different proportions, and they might experience strength and coordination in new ways. Even simple actions could feel alien. Carrying a load becomes easier, while controlling that load becomes harder because it has more inertia than you expect. Medical care would have to adjust too, from exercise protocols to how blood moves through the body. The deeper question is cultural. A population that lives for generations in low gravity may become physically distinct, and that would make the planet itself part of their identity in a very literal way. A day on Mars is close to Earth's, which helps human rhythms. A Martian day is only a little longer than our own, and that small kindness matters more than it sounds. Human sleep is guided by light, habits, and hormones that prefer a regular cycle. In places with strange day lengths, schedules become a constant negotiation between biology and clocks. Mars offers something familiar enough that settlers could keep work shifts, meals and rest without fighting their brains every night. That stability ripples outward. Greenhouse lighting can follow a near-Earth pattern. Schools and routines can feel normal. Even a sense of time passing can stay grounded. There is still a twist. The extra minutes accumulate, so mission planners often use a special schedule that drifts gradually to stay aligned with local sunrise. It becomes a gentle daily slide, like living in a world that is almost Earth, but refuses to match it perfectly. Mars still gets planet-wide dust storms that can last for weeks. The storms begin as regional events, then sometimes grow until the planet looks wrapped in a tan veil. Dust rises and spreads, and the sky can turn butterscotch, dimming the surface for long stretches. This is not just weather. It is a systems problem. Dust can coat solar panels, clog filters, and creep into joints and bearings like abrasive flour. It can also change temperatures by absorbing sunlight in the air, which can shift winds and make the storm feed itself. For settlers, the emotional effect matters too. Imagine weeks where the horizon disappears and the daylight feels bruised. Yet storms also teach a lesson. A planet does not have to be wet to be dynamic. Mars is active, restless, and capable of surprising scale. Any long-term plan has to respect that the surface is not a calm laboratory bench. Dust blocks sunlight, so solar power must plan for long, dim seasons. Solar energy is tempting because it is clean and simple, yet Mars can take it away without warning. When dust thickens in the air, panels produce less power even if they are perfectly clean. That means energy systems must be designed like lifeboats, not like casual appliances. Batteries help, but long storms can outlast ordinary storage. So engineers look at layered strategies. You can oversize solar fields to capture more during clear days. You can use energy-dense backups like nuclear units for steady baseload. You can store power in heat, in compressed gases, or in manufactured fuels that act like rechargeable sunshine. Maintenance becomes part of the story as well. Robots may brush panels, tilt them, or vibrate dust loose. The fascinating shift is psychological. On Earth, sunlight feels reliable. On Mars, it becomes a variable resource that forces civilization to become deliberate about every watt. Underground habitats use rock as shielding, the oldest protection trick. Stone is a quiet guardian. A few meters of rock can block much of the radiation that would otherwise reach a habitat, and it can soften temperature swings between day and night. That is why lava tubes are so alluring. They are natural tunnels formed by flowing lava, and some may be wide enough to hide entire neighborhoods. Living underground also changes how you build. You can pressurize a stable cavern instead of holding a dome against vacuum. You can anchor structures into solid walls rather than drifting on loose soil. There are trade-offs. Dust still finds ways in, and lighting becomes a crafted sunrise rather than a window. Yet the vision is powerful. The first cities might resemble illuminated cave systems, with farms, workshops, and living quarters tucked beneath a planet's skin. It is a strange thought. The safest place on an alien world may be inside its geology. Pressurized tunnels could connect cities like subway lines on a new world. Once you have more than one habitat, the space between them becomes a problem. Traveling outside means soups, airlocks, and constant risk. A pressurized tunnel turns that journey into a walk. It also turns separate settlements into one shared environment where air, water, and power can be exchanged. That is not only convenient, it is resilience. If one dome suffers damage, people can evacuate through a protected route. If one farm has surplus, it can feed another. Tunnels also change culture. They make neighborhoods possible, and they make trade feel ordinary. Building them is an engineering adventure. The ground may be frozen, dusty, and full of rocks that behave differently under low gravity. Some tunnels might be drilled, while others might use modular sections buried for shielding. Over time, a network could grow like roots. The planet would not be transformed all at once. It would be stitched together, corridor by corridor. Terraforming can be gradual, with many small, habitable pockets first. A whole planet is overwhelming, yet a valid-cheesed experiment is imaginable. That is why many realistic paths start with pockets. You build a sealed greenhouse. Then you build another. Then you link them. Each pocket becomes a lesson in what lurks, from air chemistry to crop choices to maintenance routines. Over time, you can expand outward, adding larger enclosures, thicker shielding, and more ambitious climate control. The goal is not just comfort. The goal is learning at a scale where mistakes are survivable. This approach also creates variety. Different pockets could test different conditions, like higher pressure zones for agriculture and lower pressure zones for industry. As the network grows, it begins to feel less like isolated bases and more like a distributed biosphere. The thrilling idea is that the first terraformed landscapes may be patchwork, like islands of earthness scattered across a wider alien world, slowly widening their borders. One idea uses factories to release heat-trapping gases made from local materials. Picture a row of automated plants that never sleep, turning Martian resources into atmospheric leverage. The usual candidates are manufactured gases that trap heat very efficiently, so you do not need oceans of them to matter. A factory could pull carbon and fluorine from local minerals, then assemble molecules designed to hold warmth close to the ground. It is not magic. It is industrial chemistry with a planetary goal. The compelling part is the feedback it could unlock. A small rise in temperature can free more carbon dioxide from cold reservoirs, which can add extra warming without new factories. The hard part is governance. You would be manufacturing climate on purpose, so you would need monitoring that is as serious as any power grid. You would also need a plan for stopping, because a thermostat only works if it can be turned down. Another idea uses orbiting shades to cool a world on purpose. Cooling can be the first step, especially for worlds that are too hot to touch. An orbital shade is like moving a planet slightly farther from its star without changing the orbit. You block a fraction of incoming light, then wait for the surface and atmosphere to respond. That waiting is the drama. Heat stored in air and rock bleeds away slowly, and weather patterns shift as the energy budget changes. If you place the shade where gravity and sunlight can balance the structure, you reduce the need for constant station keeping. The shade itself could be a swarm of thin panels rather than one giant sheet, which makes repairs and expansion more realistic. The deeper point is philosophical. Most climate change on Earth is accidental. This would be intentional climate change with a steering wheel. It asks whether a civilization can be careful enough to carry that responsibility. Venus could be cooled by blocking sunlight high above its clouds. If you want Venus to calm down, you have to start before the sunlight becomes heat. High above the planet, you could place a light-blocking structure that reduces the energy pouring into the atmosphere. The first goal would be to bring temperatures down far enough that carbon dioxide begins behaving differently, because pressure and temperature decide what chemistry is possible. Once cooling begins, the planet might form more reflective clouds, and that could help the shade do its work. Yet Venus is not a passive target. Its atmosphere circulates fast, and it stores an enormous amount of heat. Even with a shade, the cooling would be a long story measured in lifetimes. That is what makes it so fascinating. It would be a civilization choosing patience over force, and choosing to reshape a world by changing its sunlight rather than striking its surface. Venus's air is mostly carbon dioxide, thicker than Earth's by far. On Earth, carbon dioxide is a trace ingredient that still has huge influence. On Venus, it is the main character. The atmosphere is so dense that it behaves like a deep ocean of gas, pushing down with relentless weight. That thickness changes everything. Heat has trouble escaping, winds carry tremendous momentum, and sound would travel in ways that feel almost underwater. It also means the greenhouse effect has had a very long time to dominate, until the surface became a place where many materials would soften or fail. For terraforming, this is both obstacle and opportunity. Carbon dioxide is not rare there. It is abundant, ready to be captured, transformed, or exported if you have the power to do it. Venus is a reminder that atmosphere is destiny. Change the ingredients and the amount, and you do not just get different weather. You get a different world. On Venus, pressure at the surface is like deep ocean pressure. If you stood on the ground, the air would press on you with a force comparable to being far below Earth's sea surface. That is why many lander missions there have survived only briefly, because the combination of pressure and heat is punishing. High pressure also changes how gases behave, and it changes how machines must be built. Seals, joints, and electronics face stress from every direction. For terraforming, pressure becomes a physical mountain you must remove. Lowering it is not like opening a window. You would have to take mass out of the atmosphere or lock it away into solid forms. The breathtaking part is how familiar the planet is in size and how alien it is in feel. Venus teaches that habitability is not about being Earth-sized. It is about the invisible weight of the sky and what that weight does to everything beneath it. Floating cities in Venus's upper air could enjoy Earth-like temperatures. There is a sweet band high above the surface where temperatures can be surprisingly comfortable. The idea of a city that floats there feels like fantasy, yet it follows a simple physical principle. If your habitat is filled with a gas that is lighter than the surrounding carbon dioxide, buoyancy does the lifting for you. You are not fighting gravity with rockets every moment. You are sailing on density. A floating settlement would still need protection from corrosive droplets and fierce winds, and it would need careful engineering to handle power and supplies. Yet the vision is astonishing. Instead of terraforming the whole planet first, you could begin with an airborne foothold, drifting above a world that is otherwise impossible. From that altitude, you could study the atmosphere, harvest chemicals, and perhaps even begin climate work while living in conditions that feel almost familiar. Terraforming Venus means removing carbon, a truly colossal chemical chore. If carbon dioxide is the bulk of the atmosphere, then changing Venus means dealing with carbon at planetary scale. You would need ways to separate it, move it, and store it so it cannot simply return to the sky. Some concepts imagine converting it into solid carbonates, then burying or exporting those solids. Others imagine splitting molecules using immense energy, then shipping carbon away as a feedstock for space industry. Each pathway has a cost that is hard to comprehend, because you are not cleaning a smokestack. You are emptying an ocean made of gas. The fascinating twist is that the task is not just engineering. It is also bookkeeping. Where does the carbon go? And how do you guarantee it stays there for thousands of years? A terraformed Venus would be a monument to containment and to the discipline of long-term stewardship. Carbon can be locked into rock, but it takes vast energy. Turning carbon dioxide into stable minerals is like writing it into stone. On Earth, this happens naturally through weathering, as water and rock slowly bind carbon into carbonate minerals. The catch is speed. Natural processes can be too slow for deliberate planetary change, so you would have to accelerate them. That means mining reactive rock, crushing it to expose fresh surfaces, moving water through it, and managing heat and pressure so reactions proceed efficiently. Every step demands power. You would also have to handle byproducts and ensure the new minerals remain stable in their environment. The appeal is permanence. Once carbon is mineralized, it does not drift back into the air with a warm season. It becomes part of the crust. The deeper lesson is sobering. Our planet makes stable climates partly by using geology as a storage vault. Terraforming tries to build that vault on purpose, and the price is energy. Mars once had rivers, and its rocks still remember flowing water. You can read that memory in valley networks that branch like tree roots, and in channels that widen and narrow as if water once argued with the landscape. Some paths curve around obstacles, which is a clue that the flow lasted long enough to carve decisions into stone. In places, minerals form in ways that usually require water hanging around, not just a brief melt. For terraforming, this is more than romance. It suggests Mars was once capable of sustaining runoff, erosion, and cycling, which are the same processes that make a planet feel alive. It also gives explorers targets. Ancient riverbeds are where sediments pile up, and sediments are where chemistry can concentrate useful ingredients. When you picture future habitats, it is hard not to imagine them near those old paths, built where a planet once learned how to move water across open ground. Ancient shorelines hint that Mars may have held long-lived seas. A shoreline is a promise that water stayed put long enough to draw a boundary. Waves sort grains by size, and they sculpt terraces and edges with a repeated rhythm. If you find patterns like that, you start imagining a Mars with coastal weather, fog, and seasonal storms rolling in from open water. Seas also change a planet's personality because they store heat, and they spread it. A world with large bodies of water can soften temperature swings, and it can drive winds that circle the globe. For terraforming, the idea of past seas is both inspiring and sobering. Inspiring because it suggests Mars once crossed the threshold of stability. Sobering because something later broke that stability. Shoreline candidates are therefore like fossils of climate, and they whisper the question that every terraforming plan must answer. What kept those seas alive, and what finally took them away? If Mars warms, buried ice could become mudflows in some regions. Ice in the ground is not always harmless. When it thaws, it can turn stable slopes into something that moves, because water acts like a lubricant between grains. The result can be slumps, slides, and muddy surges that behave more like wet concrete than like a river. On Earth, similar processes reshape hillsides after sudden warming or heavy rain. On Mars, the details will differ because gravity is lower and the air is thinner, yet the hazard remains real. This matters for settlement planning. You would want to map ISA-reach terrain, then choose foundations and tunnels that avoid zones likely to soften. It also matters for terraforming strategy. If you warm a planet, you are not only changing temperature, you are waking up hidden mechanics in the ground. The exciting part is that these flows also reveal where ice is and where water wants to travel once it is free. Making oceans requires not just water, but enough air pressure too. Liquid water is picky. If the surrounding pressure is too low, water does not settle into a calm pond. It tends to boil or evaporate even when it is cold, because the rules of phase change shift with pressure. That is why an open lake on Mars, under current conditions, would struggle to remain stable at the surface. For terraforming, this links two giant tasks into one. You can deliver water, melt ice, or mine it from the ground, yet without a thicker blanket of air, that water does not behave the way people expect from Earth. It would vanish upward, freeze over, or both. This is why early visions often start with enclosed environments, where pressure can be held steady while water cycles safely. Oceans are not only a supply problem, they are an atmosphere problem. Before you can have coastlines, you need a sky heavy enough to let water rest. A warmer Mars could release more carbon dioxide from its soil. Mars stores carbon dioxide in more than one place. Some is in the air, some is in seasonal ice, and some is locked into the ground in forms that do not easily announce themselves. If you raise temperatures, you can shift that balance. Cold traps can weaken, and gases can migrate out of porous material. That is why warming is sometimes described as priming a pump. You are trying to coax the planet to contribute to its own transformation. The fascinating part is that this is a kind of planetary bargaining. You invest energy up front, then you hope Mars pays you back with extra atmospheric mass that makes the next step easier. Yet this also introduces unpredictability. Release rates can vary by region, and some stores may be deeper than expected. It would require careful measurements, repeated over long periods, like listening for a faint breath that grows louder as the world slowly wakes. That release might help warming, but it might also be limited. There is a temptation to imagine hidden vaults of carbon dioxide waiting to burst free. Yet nature does not always keep convenient stockpiles. Some carbon may be trapped in minerals that require extreme conditions to break down. Some may be scattered in thin concentrations that add up globally, yet do not surge locally. And even if carbon dioxide increases, there are trade-offs. More atmosphere can mean stronger winds and more dust lofting, which can cool the surface by blocking sunlight. It can also mean more heat transport, which changes where ice survives. So the story is not simply more carbon equals more warmth. It is a network of responses. For terraforming, this uncertainty changes the plan from a single lever to a set of tests. You would warm a region, watch what happens, and then decide whether the planet is offering you extra greenhouse help or only a modest contribution. Mars may assist, but it may also insist on limits. Some plans rely on imported volatiles, delivered by redirected icy bodies. Volatiles are substances that easily become gases, and in space they often travel as water ice, carbon compounds, and nitrogen-bearing materials. If a planet lacks enough of these, one bold solution is to bring them in. In the outer solar system, icy bodies carry huge inventories of frozen material, preserved in deep cold for eons. The concept is dramatic. You would choose targets, adjust their paths with sustained pushes, and aim deliveries so material arrives where it can be captured rather than lost. Done carefully, imported volatiles could feed air, water, and chemistry, which are the three ingredients that make a world feel less barren. The risk is obvious, which is why many versions of the idea aim for controlled capture rather than direct impacts. Yet even with safer methods, the scale is staggering. You are treating the solar system like a supply chain, and you are asking celestial objects to become cargo. Redirecting comets is dangerous, and precision must be extraordinary. A comet is not a harmless snowball. It can be many kilometers wide, moving faster than a rifle bullet on a planetary scale. If you misjudge its trajectory, you are not simply off by a little. You could create an impact that sterilizes the very world you hoped to nurture. Precision also means time. Small course corrections must happen early because early nudges compound over long distances. That requires engines that can operate for years, reliable navigation, and constant tracking. It also requires choosing targets that behave predictably, which is not always easy for comets that vent jets of gas when sunlight warms their surfaces. Those jets act like thrusters you did not schedule. In terraforming discussions, this danger is valuable because it forces realism. It highlights that some shortcuts carry catastrophic downside, and that planetary engineering has to be disciplined enough to treat uncertainty as a threat. The dream cannot ignore the math of momentum. Safer delivery ideas include harvesting water from nearby asteroids. Asteroids come in many types, and some are surprisingly rich in hydrated minerals or hidden ice. Instead of steering a single giant projectile, you could work with smaller bodies and process them gradually. That changes the risk profile. You can mine water, purify it, then store it as icebox, liquid tanks, or chemical feedstock for fuel and air systems. You could also place processing stations where it is efficient, then move the products rather than the whole asteroid. The excitement here is flexibility. Asteroid resources can support habitats long before any planet-wide change, and they can scale up as infrastructure grows. It also turns exploration into something practical. Mapping asteroids becomes like surveying wells and reservoirs. Which ones are rich, which ones are accessible, and which ones are stable enough for long-term operations. In this vision, terraforming is not only about planets. It is about using the smaller pieces of the solar system to supply them. Space resources turn terraforming into logistics, not just science fiction. Once you talk about mirrors, factories, and imported volatiles, you are really talking about transport, energy, maintenance, and governance. A mirror is not only an idea. It is a manufacturing problem, a station keeping problem, and a debris problem. A climate factory is not only chemistry. It is mining, power generation, repairs, and spare parts. Even a water delivery plan becomes a question of routes, storage, and redundancy. This is why terraforming feels more plausible when it is framed as an industrial ecosystem that grows over time. You start with scouts and robots, then you build processing nodes, then you connect them with dependable shipping lanes. The world changes because the supply network becomes capable of sustaining change. That is also where the human story enters. Logistics demands cooperation, patience, and standards that outlast any single mission. The planet is the stage, yet the real engine is the civilization that can keep showing up year after year and keep the system running. Terraforming must consider planetary protection. We do not want accidental contamination. When we send spacecraft to another world, we also send hitchhikers. Microbes can cling to tiny crevices, and spores can survive harsh treatment better than you might expect. If a lander carries life from Earth to a place that could support it, you might never be able to tell what was native and what was introduced. That is not a small mistake. It would blur one of the biggest scientific questions we can ask, which is whether life began somewhere else. It could also create an ecological problem. An introduced organism might spread in ways you cannot control, especially if it finds a niche with no competition. Planetary protection is the discipline of keeping exploration honest and careful, using cleaning methods, sealed components, and strict procedures. Terraforming raises the stakes even more. If you plan to reshape a world, you must decide when exploration ends and stewardship begins, and what you are willing to risk along the way. If Mars has native life, changing the planet could erase it. Most people imagine life as forests and animals, yet the most likely native life on Mars would be small and hidden. It might live in salty brines, deep fractures, or thin films that appear only in rare conditions. That kind of life could be extremely specialized, and that makes it fragile. If you warm the planet, change surface chemistry, or introduce new organisms, you could outcompete or poison what was already there. Worse, you might erase the evidence before you even confirm it existed. There is also a moral weight. A biosphere, even a microbial one, is a unique history written in molecules. If it evolved independently, it would be one of the most important discoveries in human existence. Terraforming would then become a choice between making a world more comfortable for us and protecting a life story that does not belong to us. That choice is not technical. It is philosophical, and it would shape how humanity sees itself. Ethical debates ask who has the right to remake another world. A planet is not an empty stage just because it looks empty to human eyes. It is a system with its own history, its own geology, and possibly its own biology. Even if it is lifeless, it still carries scientific value as a record of how worlds evolve. Terraforming asks whether human need is enough to justify rewriting that record. It also raises questions about consent and ownership. If one nation or one company begins altering a planet, their choices could affect everyone who arrives later, including people not yet born. That is the kind of power that demands more than ambition. It demands legitimacy. Some argue that spreading life is a moral good and that making new homes is a duty. Others argue that restraint is the higher duty because irreversible change can become a form of erasure. The debate is part of the project. Before we engineer a new sky, we have to decide what kind of species is allowed to do that. A new atmosphere is a commons, and commons need rules. Air is shared. You cannot fence it, and you cannot keep it from drifting. If a terraformed world has an atmosphere, then every settlement depends on it, and every settlement can damage it. A factory that leaks, a fire that spreads, or an industrial choice that seems small locally could have planet-wide consequences over time. That is why an atmosphere must be treated like a public resource. On Earth, we learned this lesson late, and we are still learning it. On a new world, you would want the rules before the mistakes, not after. That means standards for emissions, safeguards for emergency venting, and monitoring that is transparent and trusted. It also means deciding who gets to set limits and how violations are enforced when distance and politics complicate everything. Terraforming is often described as engineering, yet it is also governance. A breathable sky would be the greatest shared infrastructure ever built, and it would need the strongest shared commitment to protect it. Terraforming would be the largest environmental project in human history. Even our biggest Earth projects are small compared to changing a whole planet's temperature, pressure, and chemistry. On Earth, you can move a river or build a dam, and the rest of the planet still exists around you. Terraforming is different. There is no surrounding world to catch your mistakes. You are rewriting the baseline conditions that every ecosystem and every machine depends on. The scale forces new thinking. You would need energy production at levels that feel like a civilization's heartbeat, steady and reliable. You would need supply chains that span worlds and maintenance cultures that plan in decades instead of quarters. You would also need patience, because a climate system does not respond instantly. The atmosphere mixes, the ground stores heat, and water changes state on its own schedule. The astonishing part is that the project is not only vast, it is intimate. It determines what it feels like to breathe, to walk outside, and to raise a child under a new sky. That is environmental work with a human face. Early stages might be run by robots, working for decades unattended. Robots do not need air, and they do not mind dust. They can work through long nights, withstand cold, and follow routines that would exhaust human crews. That makes them natural pioneers for a world that is not yet safe. Imagine autonomous excavators, carving foundations, prospecting for ice, and laying power lines while no one is there to watch the sunrise. Imagine inspection drones that patrol habitats, listening for leaks with instruments instead of ears. Decades-long operation changes design priorities. Machines must be repairable by other machines, and they must tolerate delays in communication. They also need judgment. A rover that can recognize a damaged cable and choose a workaround is far more valuable than one that waits for instructions from millions of kilometers away. This is where terraforming starts to feel like a relay race. The first baton is passed not from human to human, but from human to machine. Then from machine to the first settlers who arrive to inherit a working foothold. Autonomous machines could build mirrors, mines, and sealed greenhouses first. Before any open-air dream, you need infrastructure that behaves reliably. That means mining equipment that can dig and sort without constant human hands, and manufacturing systems that can turn local materials into useful parts. It means sealed greenhouses that can regulate light, moisture, and nutrients with strict consistency. In some visions, it also means building the earliest orbital structures, like mirror arrays assembled piece by piece in space. Autonomy makes these visions more plausible because it reduces the need for early human presence in dangerous conditions. It also accelerates learning. A fleet of machines can run many experiments at once, comparing different greenhouse soils, different crop mixes, and different construction techniques. Each success becomes a template. Each failure becomes a data point, not a tragedy. The story becomes one of gradual sophistication. First you build survival systems. Then you build production. Then you build expansion. Terraforming begins to look less like a single grand switch and more like a growing toolkit, constructed by patient helpers that do not get tired. Solar power is weaker on Mars, so energy planning is central. Mars is farther from the Sun, which means the same panel produces less power even under a clear sky. Add dust and seasonal variation, and energy becomes the tight constraint on everything else. Heating habitats, running life support, processing water, and manufacturing materials all compete for power. This forces a different mindset. You cannot treat energy as background. It becomes the plot. Settlements would likely schedule heavy industry when surplus power is available, then shift to essential loads when conditions worsen. Storage matters as much as generation, because power must flow through storms, nights, and winter. You might see power expressed in daily rituals, like charging reserves before a storm season. The fascinating part is how it shapes society. Scarce energy drives efficiency, careful planning, and shared infrastructure. It also shapes terraforming itself. Every plan to thicken air, melt ice, or run chemical factories starts with the same question. Where does the power come from, and how do you keep it steady for years? Nuclear power is compact, but it raises safety and waste questions. A nuclear unit can provide steady energy without relying on sunlight, and that steadiness is priceless on a world with dust storms and long nights. It can keep habitats warm, run factories, and support critical systems that cannot ever go dark. That is why nuclear options appear so often in serious planning. Yet nuclear power carries responsibilities that do not vanish just because you are far from Earth. You need reliable cooling and shielding, and you need procedures that remain strict even when crews are tired or resources are strained. Waste storage becomes a long-term promise. On a new world, you cannot assume future generations will have easy solutions. You have to build containment into the plan from the start. There is also the human factor. A single trusted power source can become a political anchor, which means its control and oversight matter. In a terraforming timeline, nuclear power can be both a lifeline and a governance challenge. It offers a steady heartbeat, yet it demands maturity as a species. Wind exists on Mars, yet thin air carries less push. Mars has winds that can race across plains and sculpt dunes, yet the air is so thin that the force on a wind turbine is much smaller than the same speed would produce on Earth. That surprises people because they imagine speed equals power, but power depends on air density too. This creates a strange scene. You can watch dust streamers streak along the ground and still find that a turbine produces only modest electricity. Wind energy is not impossible, yet it needs larger blades, careful design, and realistic expectations. The thin air also changes how dust moves. Fine particles can stay aloft and travel far, which affects visibility and maintenance. For terraforming, wind becomes both a tool and a hazard. It can help spread heat and moisture once they exist, and it can also redistribute dust that alters surface reflectivity in unpredictable patterns. A windy planet with thin air feels like a paradox. It looks energetic, and it still forces you to be humble about what that energy can do. Titan has lakes of methane, which behave like a strange, cold ocean. The first shock is that they have shorelines, waves, and rainfall, yet the liquid is not water. Under Titan's bitter cold, methane can pool into broad seas and smaller lakes, and it can also fall from the sky like rain. That means Titan has a weather cycle that feels familiar in shape, even though every molecule is different. For terraforming, this is both a gift and a warning. A world that already moves liquid across its surface is telling you it has active climate plumbing. Yet those lakes are also a reminder that temperature decides everything. Warm Titan by enough, and methane becomes a greenhouse gas in the air instead of a stable surface liquid. Keep it cold, and you have coastlines made of hydrocarbons, with chemistry that could build complex organic materials over time. Titan's thick air protects from radiation better than Mars's does. Radiation is not only about distance from the sun. It is also about what stands between you and the particles. Titan's atmosphere is dense enough to provide meaningful shielding, which changes the experience of standing on the surface. You would still need protection during extreme events, yet the baseline exposure could be less brutal than on an almost airless world. This matters for early habitats because shielding is heavy, and heavy is expensive to move. A thick atmosphere also makes flight easier. A drone or balloon can travel with less power, and that makes exploration and construction more practical. For terraforming dreams, this kind of air is a head start, even if it is not breathable. It suggests a world where pressure vessels can be smaller, where leaks are less instantly fatal, and where the outside environment is not pure vacuum, but an active buffering layer. Titan's cold is severe, so warming it would demand immense energy. Titan sits far from the sun, so sunlight arrives weak and diluted. The surface is so cold that water behaves like rock, and methane becomes the liquid that flows. To shift that world toward Earth-like conditions, you would have to pour in energy for a very long time. This is not a quick heater in a room. It is trying to raise the temperature of an entire moon, plus its atmosphere, plus its surface materials. Even if you used orbital mirrors or powerful heat sources, much of the added energy would be spent just changing phase states and waking chemistry that is currently frozen in place. The payoff is seductive. Warmer Titan could unlock vast water reserves and new kinds of habitability. The cost is sobering. Terraforming there would be a project measured in eras, with an energy budget that rivals the output of whole civilizations. The moon has almost no atmosphere, so terraforming it is hardest. An atmosphere does more than let you breathe. It spreads heat, slows temperature swings, shields from small impacts, and gives water a chance to stay liquid. The moon lacks that protective layer, so the surface jumps between intense heat and deep cold. Any gas you add also wants to escape, because low gravity and no global magnetic shelter make long-term retention difficult. That means classic planet-scale terraforming struggles here. You would be trying to fill a leaky cup in a place where sunlight and space weather keep stirring the rim. The practical path looks different. You build sealed environments and treat the outside as an engineering hostile zone. The moon is still valuable because it is close, and closeness makes experimentation possible. It can teach us how to build durable life support, how to use local materials, and how to live well without ever expecting a natural sky. Lunar habitats may rely on sealed systems forever, like islands in vacuum. If the moon never holds a stable atmosphere, then every living space is a crafted pocket of Earth. Air is manufactured, recycled, and guarded. Water is precious, captured from ice or delivered, then circulated again and again. Food becomes a planned ecosystem, supported by lighting and careful nutrient management. This kind of living changes culture. Doors become serious devices, not casual hinges. Maintenance becomes a daily ritual, because a small leak is not an inconvenience. It is a countdown. Yet sealed living can also become surprisingly rich. If you control climate, you can build gardens that bloom year-round. You can tune temperatures for comfort and design lighting that supports sleep and mood. Over time, a lunar settlement could feel less like a camp and more like an archipelago of indoor worlds, each with its own character. Terraforming then becomes architectural, a series of habitats that expand and connect, rather than a single transformed landscape. Mercury has polar ice in permanent shadow despite its blazing days. Mercury sits close to the Sun, and its sunlit surface can become searing hot. Yet near the poles, some craters never see sunlight at all. Their floors remain in permanent shadow, and temperatures stay low enough for ice to persist for extremely long periods. That contrast is one of the strangest sights in the inner solar system. Fire above, deep freeze below. For terraforming thought experiments, it shows how important geometry can be. Tilt, crater shape, and lighting can create stable cold traps, even on a scorched world. It also offers a practical resource. Polar ice could support fuel production and life support for robotic outposts, even if the rest of Mercury is hostile. It is a reminder that habitability is not always global. Sometimes it begins as a map of tiny refuges, where physics creates safe storage without any technology at all. Some moons might be easier to para-terraform inside giant enclosures. Instead of changing an entire world, you can build a controlled shell over part of it. This idea is attractive for small bodies that cannot hold air well, because you stop fighting the sky. You create your own. An enclosure could be placed over a crater, a valley, or a lava tube opening, then sealed and pressurized. Inside, you can run a stable atmosphere, manage humidity, and grow food with fewer unknowns than an exposed surface allows. The outside remains harsh, yet the inside becomes a designed environment that can expand as engineering improves. The fascination is in the scalability. You can start with one enclosed region, then add more, then link them. Each enclosure becomes a stepping stone toward larger projects, and each one teaches the next. Para-terraforming also reduces risk. If something fails, you lose a region, not a planet. It is terraforming with compartments, like building a ship with watertight doors. Para-terraforming means building a roofed world, rather than changing the whole globe. The core idea is simple. A roof holds in pressure, blocks radiation, and creates a boundary where weather can be engineered. Under that roof, you can have air that stays put, water that can remain liquid, and temperatures that are not dictated by vacuum. You do not need to give the entire world a new atmosphere. You need to create a habitat volume that can be maintained with realistic resources. This flips the usual dream. Instead of painting a planet green from pole to pole, you build a living dome that could stretch for kilometers, then tens of kilometers, then farther. The engineering challenges are still enormous. The roof must withstand pressure from below, impacts from above, and long-term fatigue. It must also let in light, or provide lighting, while remaining strong. Yet the payoff is control. You gain a climate you can tune, rather than a climate you must persuade. A world-sized roof would be engineering beyond anything we have built. A roof that spans continents is not just big. It is a structure that must survive for generations without failing catastrophically. Pressure would push upward constantly, so the roof would need immense strength, clever support, or active stabilization. Thermal expansion would strain materials as sunlight and shadow changed temperature. Micrometeoroids would pepper the surface, so self-repair would be essential. Even dust accumulation could become a problem if it blocks light or adds weight. This kind of project would likely require a new class of materials, plus a manufacturing system in space that can produce and replace huge components routinely. It would also demand precision governance. If one region changes internal pressure, it could affect the whole structure. That makes the roof not only an engineering object, but also a political object. Still, the dream is compelling. A roofed world would feel like a private planet, built inside a larger, hostile one. It would be the ultimate habitat, a sky you can touch. Still, smaller regional roofs could create valleys of breathable air. You do not have to start with a planet-sized canopy. A regional roof over a canyon, crater, or basin could create a sheltered pocket where pressure and temperature are stable. That pocket could hold a breathable mix, support open water, and allow agriculture on a larger scale than a single greenhouse. The boundary could be reinforced by natural terrain. A crater rim can act like a wall, reducing how much roof span you need. Over time, multiple roofed regions could become a network connected by pressurized corridors and shared infrastructure. Each valley becomes a living laboratory where new soils, crops, and building styles are tested under controlled conditions. The outside world remains a place for machines, mining, and solar collection. The inside becomes a place for people to walk, work, and rest without suits. This approach keeps the boldness of terraforming while making it modular. Instead of one irreversible global change, you build a patchwork of safe skies that can grow as confidence grows. You cannot terraform with plants alone. They need the right air first. Seeds are brave, yet they are not alchemists. A leaf can make oxygen, but it cannot solve low pressure, harsh radiation, and nights that freeze moisture out of the air. Plants also depend on invisible helpers. They need carbon dioxide at usable levels, stable humidity, and roots that can exchange gases with the soil. If the air is too thin, water evaporates from leaves faster than roots can replace it, and growth becomes stress. If the atmosphere offers no protection, ultraviolet light can damage tissues before a forest ever begins. That is why early visions often start with controlled environments, where plants can thrive while the outside remains hostile. Once biology is stable inside, it can be scaled outward. The exciting truth is that plants are not the first step. They are the reward for building the conditions that let photosynthesis become effortless instead of heroic. Most crops struggle under low pressure, even with plenty of sunlight. It is easy to imagine that light and water are enough, yet pressure quietly decides whether a plant can function normally. In low-pressure environments, water can boil at lower temperatures, and that increases evaporation from leaves. Plants respond by closing stomata, which conserves water, but also restricts carbon dioxide intake. Growth slows, yields shrink, and the plant becomes vulnerable to temperature swings. Pollination can also change, because insects may not behave the same, and wind carries scent and pollen differently in thin air. This is why greenhouse design matters so much. A farm may need higher pressure than a living area, simply to keep crops efficient and predictable. Some research explores pressure-tolerant varieties and controlled lighting cycles, yet there is no escaping the core lesson. Crops are living machines calibrated by evolution to a certain range of air. When you change that range, you are asking agriculture to reinvent itself. Simple, hardy organisms could prepare soils long before gardens appear. Before you can grow lettuce, you may need to grow a microbial civilization. Pioneer organisms can tolerate harsh mineral surfaces, sparse water, and extreme temperatures better than complex plants. They can create sticky biofilms that trap dust and moisture, and they can begin producing organic compounds that later life can use. Some can even extract energy from chemical gradients in rock, which means they do not depend on lush sunlight conditions to begin working. Over time, their dead cells become the first crumbs of organic matter, and their metabolism can shift local chemistry in ways that reduce toxicity. This is slow, patient work, which is why it fits terraforming. You are not planting a garden. You are starting a soil factory that runs on biology. The wonder is that the first stage of making a world habitable might look like nothing at all, until you sample the ground and realize it is becoming alive. Lichens can survive harsh conditions and slowly break rock into nutrients. A lichen is not a single organism. It is a partnership, often between a fungus and a photosynthetic companion, living as one rugged unit. That teamwork lets lichens cling to bare stone where many plants would fail. They can tolerate drying, cold, and intense light, then revive when conditions improve. While they live, they do quiet geology. They release acids and compounds that weather rock, freeing minerals that can later become nutrients in developing soils. They also trap dust and create tiny sheltered pockets where moisture lingers longer. For terraforming, lichens are fascinating because they blur the line between biology and landscape. They are life acting as a tool, shaping the ground in slow motion. Imagine a first generation of life spreading across sheltered cliffs or inside protected enclosures, painting rock with patches of color. Not for beauty, but because those patches are turning stone into the beginnings of grass. Dirt. Cyanobacteria can make oxygen, but they also need water and warmth. Cyanobacteria are among the most important organisms in Earth's history because they helped flood our planet with oxygen long ago. Their trick is photosynthesis, using light to split water and release oxygen as a byproduct. Yet that trick has requirements. Without stable liquid water, their metabolism cannot run, and without temperatures within a workable range, growth becomes painfully slow. They also need nutrients like phosphorus and iron in forms they can use, which means the surrounding environment must cooperate. In terraforming plans, cyanobacteria often appear as early oxygen producers inside lakes, ponds, or bioreactors. The key is scale. A small tank can enrich a habitat, while a broad network could slowly influence larger regions over time. The suspense is in the patience it demands. Oxygen production is not a fireworks display. It is a steady breath, repeated for years, until the air begins to change and stays changed. Oxygenation can be slow, and it can be undone by rusting rocks. When oxygen appears, it does not automatically accumulate. Fresh planetary surfaces often contain minerals that react eagerly with oxygen, locking it away in oxides. Iron is a classic example. Give it oxygen, and it can form rust-like compounds, stealing oxygen from the air and storing it in rock. That means a newly oxygenated world can behave like a sponge, soaking up the very gas you are trying to build. On Earth, oxygen eventually rose because biological production was sustained, and because reactive minerals became saturated over long times. In terraforming, this is a crucial caution. You can pump oxygen into the sky and still watch levels stall because the ground keeps consuming it. Yet it is also a roadmap. If you can identify the major oxygen sinks, you can plan around them. You might seal reactive surfaces, manage dust exposure, or focus oxygen production in enclosed regions until the planet's appetite for oxygen begins to weaken. It is chemistry as a hidden antagonist, quietly fighting every breath. On a fresh world, oxygen often gets trapped by reacting with minerals. A planet's crust is not inert. It is a vast inventory of elements looking for stable arrangements. When oxygen becomes available, many minerals treat it like an invitation. They incorporate it into new structures, forming oxides and other oxygen-bearing compounds that remain solid for ages. This is why building breathable air is more than a question of making oxygen. It is also a question of how quickly the planet locks it away. The effect can be dramatic at first. because fresh, unweathered rock offers countless reactive sites. Dust makes it worse because it increases surface area and exposes new mineral faces. Terraforming plans that include oxygen must therefore think like accountants. How much oxygen do you produce per year? And how much does the ground remove? Only the difference accumulates in the atmosphere. The compelling part is that you can watch this process in real time with sensors as oxygen levels rise, then plateau, then rise again when mineral sinks begin to fill. It would be like listening to a planet decide whether it is ready to hold on to air. Earth's oxygen rose because life kept producing it for ages. For much of Earth's early history, oxygen was scarce. Then photosynthetic life began releasing it steadily, day after day, long enough to overwhelm the planet's chemical sinks. Oceans and rocks absorbed oxygen for a long time, yet biological production did not stop. Eventually, oxygen became a permanent feature of the sky, and that changed everything. It allowed larger, more energy-hungry life to evolve, and it enabled ozone to form, which helped shield the surface from harmful ultraviolet radiation. In terraforming discussions, this history matters because it offers a tested pathway, although it is slow. It shows that you can transform a world through continuous small actions rather than dramatic single events. The tension is in the word ages. A biosphere-built atmosphere with persistence, not speed. If humans try to imitate that process, we must decide how much of the work we can accelerate with technology and how much we must accept as a long, living marathon. Terraforming might copy that path, but with deliberate steering. Instead of waiting for evolution to stumble into the right organisms and the right timing, humans could choose the players and set the stage. You could deploy microbes that tolerate harsh conditions, then gradually introduce more complex life as pressure and temperature improve. You could control where oxygen production happens, perhaps focusing on enclosed lakes or industrial bioreactors, and you could measure how the planet responds. If oxygen is being absorbed too quickly, you adjust the plan. If climate warms too fast, you slow the inputs. This is a profound shift from nature's method. Nature experiments blindly and keeps what works. Deliberate steering means modeling, monitoring, and the willingness to change course. It also means accepting that steering has limits, because planets are not simple machines. The most captivating part is the new relationship it suggests between life and environment. Life would not merely adapt to a world. Life would be used to shape the world, guided by a long-term design that blends ecology with engineering. Life support systems teach lessons because a habitat is a tiny planet. In a sealed habitat, you learn quickly that air is a cycle, not a supply. Carbon dioxide rises, oxygen falls, humidity shifts, and every breath changes the chemistry of the space. Water must be cleaned and reused, and nutrients must circulate or the system collapses. These are the same principles that govern a whole world, just at a scale where you can measure them directly. A habitat teaches how fragile balance can be, and how many hidden interactions exist between food, waste, microbes, and human habits. It also teaches what resilience looks like. You need redundancy, monitoring, and the ability to fix problems before they snowball. Terraforming is often imagined as grand and distant, yet it is built from these small, closed-loop lessons. Each habitat is a rehearsal for planetary stewardship. If we cannot keep a few rooms stable for years, then we have no business promising that we can keep an entire planet stable for centuries. The thrilling implication is that every successful habitat is not only survival, it is training for world-making. Closed ecosystems can fail in subtle ways, like nutrient imbalances. A sealed habitat can look healthy for months, then start drifting off course in ways that are hard to notice at first. Plants may stay green while one micronutrient quietly runs low, And the first sign is a harvest that tastes bland or grows oddly shaped. Microbes can shift too. A helpful community in the soil can be replaced by strains that thrive on waste products, and those strains can change pH or clog root zones. Even insects can tip the balance, because one species may multiply faster than expected when predators are absent. Experiments like Biosphere 2 showed how small imbalances can cascade into big consequences, including shifts in carbon dioxide and oxygen levels. The lesson for terraforming is not discouraging, it is clarifying. A living system needs monitoring, diversity, and planned interventions. Stability is not a default setting. It is something you maintain with attention, like keeping a musical instrument in tune. Recycling water is harder than it sounds, because impurities accumulate. In a closed loop, water does not vanish, yet problems concentrate. Every shower, every meal, and every breath adds trace compounds back into the system. Salts build up. Cleaning agents leave residues. Materials in pipes can leach tiny amounts of metals or plastics. Even plants contribute, because they release organic molecules through roots and leaves that can cloud or foul a system over time. On Earth, rivers flush impurities away. In a habitat, there is nowhere for them to go unless you remove them deliberately. That means filtration is only the beginning. You need ways to separate dissolved contaminants, kill pathogens, and keep minerals in a sweet spot that supports both people and crops. It also means planning for surprises, like a new medication or a new food that adds unfamiliar compounds to wastewater. Water recycling becomes a kind of long-term housekeeping, where the goal is not just clean water today, but water that stays clean after thousands of cycles. Air scrubbing is chemistry in motion, and it never truly stops. Breathing turns oxygen into carbon dioxide, and that swap happens relentlessly. In a sealed space, carbon dioxide can rise faster than you would expect, and high levels can cause headaches, confusion, and poor sleep. Scrubbers prevent that by pulling carbon dioxide out of the air, often using materials that bind it, then releasing it later so the material can be reused. Some systems store it. Others convert it into useful products, like water or fuels, which turns waste into supply. The fascinating part is that air scrubbing is not a single machine. It is a choreography of fans, sensors, filters, and chemical beds that must keep working even while crews rest. If the system pauses, the atmosphere begins drifting immediately. For terraforming, this is a preview of planetary management. Even a whole planet's air will need active oversight during early stages, because stability does not arrive on its own. Agriculture needs pollination, which raises questions about insects off Earth. It is easy to picture greenhouses full of crops, yet many of those crops depend on pollination to make fruit and seeds. On Earth, that job is often done by bees, moths, flies, and wind, all guided by an environment they evolved within. Off Earth, the rules change. Light spectra may differ. Air pressure may be different. Gravity may alter how insects fly, how pollen falls, and how flowers hold their shapes. You might choose crops that self-pollinate, or you might hand-pollinate with tools, which is laborious at scale. Another option is robotic pollinators, tiny drones that can be scheduled and tracked, like automated farmhands. You could also use air pulses to shake pollen loose, or vibration methods that mimic bumblebee buzzing for certain plants. This is not a small detail. Pollination is the moment where a plant's future is decided. Terraforming agriculture will have to reinvent that moment with intention, not assumption. Some plants rely on seasons, and alien seasons can be extreme. Many plants are not only responding to warmth, they're responding to timing. Some need a cold spell before they will flower, which is a biological promise that winter has passed. Others use day length as a clock, because the changing duration of light tells them when to fruit or go dormant. On another world, those cues can become unreliable. Days might be longer or shorter. Seasons might be stretched out. Sunlight might be filtered by dust or haze. A plant that expects a quick spring could be forced to wait through months of confusing twilight conditions, and that can reduce yields or disrupt seed cycles. The solution may be to take seasons away from the sky and put them into the greenhouse, using controlled lighting and temperature schedules like a programmable calendar. That is a powerful idea. It means the first farms on a new world might have their own private seasons, independent of what the planet is doing outside, until outdoor conditions become predictable enough to trust. Mars has longer seasons than Earth because its year is longer. If you lived on Mars, you would feel time stretch. Seasons last longer because the planet takes more time to travel around the sun. That changes planning for everything, from agriculture to power budgets to how long supplies must last. It also means weather patterns can linger. A dusty period can drag on. A cold season can feel like it refuses to end. Mars also has an orbit that is more lopsided than Earth's, which makes some seasons more intense than others. In the southern hemisphere, summers can be shorter and hotter, which can influence dust activity and temperature swings. For terraforming, longer seasons are a design constraint. If you're trying to melt ice, you may have to sustain efforts through extended winters. If you are trying to grow crops outdoors someday, you will need plants that tolerate long, slow transitions. Mars invites patience in a very literal way because its calendar is built for waiting. A planet's tilt shapes climate patterns, and tilt can change over time. Tilt decides where sunlight lands, and that decides where ice can survive, where deserts form, and how storms move. Earth's tilt gives us seasons that feel familiar, yet even Earth's tilt wobbles over long times, and that wobble is linked to slow climate shifts. On other worlds, tilt can be less stable, which means climate belts can migrate dramatically. Regions that were once cold traps can become sunlit. Ice can relocate. Dust and frost patterns can shift in ways that would confuse any long-term terraforming plan. The deeper point is that climate is not only about atmosphere and oceans. It is also about geometry. Terraforming would have to include long-range forecasting, not just of weather, but of orbital and rotational behavior. You might choose settlement sites based on how tilt is likely to evolve, because a place that seems safe today could become harsher in a few thousand years. Planetary engineering becomes long-term thinking written into maps. Big moons stabilize tilt, and Mars's small moons offer little help. Earth's moon acts like a stabilizer, helping keep Earth's tilt from wandering too wildly. That stability supports a relatively predictable pattern of seasons, which has been important for ecosystems and long-term climate. Mars, by contrast, has tiny moons that do not provide the same anchoring effect. Without a strong stabilizer, a planet's tilt can shift more chaotically over long spans, which can drive major climate rearrangements. Ice can move from poles toward mid-latitudes, then back again. That matters for terraforming because it affects where water and carbon dioxide will tend to settle, and where habitats might face creeping frost or unexpected thaw. It also adds a strange layer to the human story. Settlers might live through mild seasonal changes, while knowing that deep time could bring a different Mars, with different sunlight angles and different climate zones. On a terraformed world, the most serious weather forecast might be the one measured in millennia. Dust, ice, and clouds can create sudden climate flips on a marginal world. When a planet sits near a threshold, small changes can tip it. Dust can dim sunlight at the surface while warming the air above, which can alter wind patterns in ways that lift even more dust. Ice can reflect sunlight and reinforce cooling, which allows ice to spread farther. Clouds can either trap heat or block light, depending on their structure and altitude, and that makes them unpredictable gatekeepers. On a world that is barely warm enough for liquid water, These effects can shove conditions from stable to hostile quickly. Terraforming would have to manage those tipping points with care, because early stages are the most delicate. You might be trying to keep a thin band of habitability alive, and a run of dusty seasons could collapse it. The fascination is that this is not a bug in the system. It is the system. Planetary climates have moods, and near the edge of habitability, those moods can swing. Terraforming plans must handle surprises, because planets are complex machines. Every world has interactions you do not fully see until you start changing it. Minerals react differently when warmed. Dust behaves differently when air pressure rises. Local winds can create patterns that models did not predict. Even human activity can become a climate factor, because cities, factories, and agriculture produce heat and chemicals. So a responsible plan looks less like a blueprint and more like a living strategy. You set goals, measure constantly, and adjust with humility. You build safety margins, and you prefer reversible steps early on. You also design systems that can fail gracefully, so a problem in one region does not doom the whole project. The real excitement is that surprises are not only threats. They can reveal shortcuts, like unexpected resources, helpful chemical pathways, or stable microclimates. Terraforming is often framed as conquest, yet the better frame is partnership. You are negotiating with physics, and you learn the rules as you go. Building an atmosphere also means planning weather, storms, and rainfall. Air is not just something you breathe. It is a moving engine that carries heat and water around a world. Once you thicken an atmosphere, you begin creating winds, pressure systems, and clouds, whether you want them or not. Add enough moisture and you invite rain, snow, fog, and the erosion that comes with them. That erosion can be helpful because it makes soils and reshapes landscapes, yet it can also threaten settlements if you place them badly. Rainfall patterns also decide where forests could ever exist and where deserts would still dominate. A terraformed world could have monsoons, jet streams, and storm seasons, and those patterns would be shaped by mountains, oceans, and the planet's rotation. That is why climate models become as important as rockets. You are not only building air, you are designing a planet's daily moods, and you want those moods to be survivable. Too much warming risks runaway effects, especially with thick carbon dioxide. Warming is tempting because it promises liquid water and softer nights. Yet heat can also unlock traps you cannot easily close again. Carbon dioxide can be released from cold reservoirs, and once it is in the air, it can amplify warming further. If the planet has the wrong balance, you can end up chasing your own footsteps as each warm step makes the next step faster. Runaway does not always mean a Venus-like inferno. It can also mean pushing a region into constant dust storms, drying soils, or destabilizing ice in ways that make the climate swing. The danger is that the most dramatic changes often come after a threshold is crossed, not while you are inching toward it. Terraforming would need careful throttles, clear stop points, and emergency cooling options. The awe in this fact is also the warning. A planet can respond like a sleeping giant. If you wake it too quickly, it may not settle back down. Too little warming leaves water frozen, and biology stalls. Life depends on chemistry that moves, and chemistry moves best in liquid water. If temperatures remain too low, water stays locked as ice, and nutrients cannot circulate through roots, and microbes cannot work at useful speed. Even if an atmosphere thickened a little, it may not be enough to hold warmth through long nights, and freeze-thaw cycles can become brutal for living systems. This is why early terraforming is a search for the minimum viable climate, the point where water can exist as liquid often enough for ecosystems to keep going. It is not about comfort. It is about continuity. A single warm afternoon does not build a biosphere. You need weeks, then months, then years where life can plan on liquid water being available. The suspense is that this threshold can be stubborn. You might do enormous work and still remain on the wrong side of it, watching frost reclaim every gain. Terraforming is partly a race against cold's ability to shut everything down. A breathable world needs safe ultraviolet levels, not just comfortable temperatures. People often focus on warmth and air pressure, yet sunlight carries hazards too. Ultraviolet light can damage DNA, harm eyes, and stress plants, especially if the atmosphere does not filter it. On Earth, we take for granted that the sky provides protection, and that protection is one reason land life flourished. On a newly altered world, you might have breathable air long before you have the right filtering chemistry. That would mean outdoor life is possible in theory, yet risky in practice. Habitats might require special kentings, clothing, or shielding until the atmosphere matures. For crops, high ultraviolet can reduce yields and damage leaves, which forces greenhouses to use filters and careful lighting. This adds a new layer to terraforming plans. You are not only creating a warm, thick atmosphere, you are crafting a sunlight environment that living tissue can tolerate over decades. A truly habitable world is not just a place to breathe. It is a place where skin and leaves can meet daylight without paying a biological price. Ozone forms from oxygen, but it depends on sunlight and chemistry. Ozone is a strange guardian. It is made from oxygen, yet it behaves like a different substance entirely, absorbing ultraviolet light high in the atmosphere. Creating it is not as simple as adding oxygen. You need the right kind of sunlight to split oxygen molecules, and you need chemical conditions that allow ozone to form and persist. Too little oxygen and ozone cannot build. Too many destructive reactions and ozone is broken down as quickly as it appears. On Earth, ozone's balance is influenced by atmospheric circulation, temperature, and trace gases. And those same factors would matter on a terraformed world. The fascinating point is that ozone is an emergent property. It is not a product you deliver in tanks. It is a layer that assembles itself when the atmosphere reaches a certain maturity. That means early settlers might live with breathable air while still depending on roof filters, visors, and sheltered agriculture. A planet's protective skin arrives late in the story, after the air has learned how to organize itself. On Mars, low air pressure makes liquid water unstable at the surface. Water has a phase diagram that quietly rules your dreams. If pressure is low enough, liquid water can transition toward boiling or rapid evaporation at temperatures that would feel cold to a human hand. That means a puddle can fizz away even without heat, and exposed moisture can vanish into thin air instead of soaking into soil. It is one reason Mars feels so dry, even where ice is present. The terraforming, this turns pressure into a gatekeeper. Until pressure rises, any surface water you create is fighting physics. It may freeze, evaporate, or both, and it will do so fast enough to defeat outdoor agriculture and stable lakes. This is why early water use is likely to be protected. You store water underground, inside habitats, or under insulating covers that reduce evaporation. The compelling twist is that as pressure increases, water behavior changes dramatically. The moment you cross certain thresholds, rivers and rain stop being temporary tricks and start being stable features. Pressure is not just comfort. It is the permission slip that lets water linger. Pressure can be raised locally first, inside expanding networks of habitats. Instead of trying to thicken the sky everywhere at once, you can build pressure where it matters most. A habitat can hold a higher pressure bubble, and that bubble can be optimized for crops, comfort, and machinery. You can also tune different areas differently. A farming zone might run at higher pressure for plant health, while an industrial corridor might run at lower pressure to reduce structural stress. Over time, as more habitats appear, those bubbles can multiply and spread, creating a patchwork of controlled environments. This approach turns terraforming into incremental engineering. You can test materials, refine recycling systems, and learn how humans adapt before committing to planet-scale changes. It also makes the first stage survivable. If the outside remains harsh, the inside can still be safe and productive. The wonder is that a world can become livable from the inside out. The first breathable landscapes may be corridors and domes built like growing crystals, until they begin to feel like regions rather than rooms. Over time, habitats could merge, like bubbles joining into one sea. Imagine separate domes and tunnels spreading across a plain, then expanding until their boundaries touch. At first, each habitat is its own world, with its own air system and rules. Then two connect, and suddenly airflow, water distribution, and power sharing become larger, more resilient networks. As connections multiply, you can begin to treat the system like a regional climate. Humidity can be balanced across districts. Agriculture can scale, and waste can become feedstock for nearby processes. The psychological shift would be huge. Instead of stepping from airlock to airlock, you could walk for kilometers under one continuous atmosphere, hearing your own footsteps and feeling normal pressure in your lungs. This merging also creates new engineering challenges. A leak becomes a shared concern, so you need valves, bulkheads, and zoning like ships use. Yet the payoff is powerful. The habitat network stops feeling like survival architecture and starts feeling like geography. Terraforming becomes a lived experience, not a distant plan, as the breathable interior grows into something that resembles a continent. Terraforming could start as city planning, then become planetary planning. The earliest decisions will look surprisingly ordinary. Where do you place housing relative to industry? How do you route water? Where do you put farms so they get light without overheating? These are city questions, yet on another world, they become climate questions too. A cluster of habitats changes the local environment by releasing heat, moisture, and gases, and by altering reflectivity with roads and structures. As settlements grow, those local effects can begin to interact, shaping regional temperature and airflow inside enclosed networks. Eventually, the line between urban design and terraforming blurs. You are no longer only building places to live. You are shaping the planet's developing environment through where you build, how you power it, and what substances you release or capture. This perspective is thrilling because it makes terraforming feel closer. It is not a single giant gesture. It is thousands of design decisions that accumulate into climate, like a city's lights, slowly becoming a new kind of dawn. The first true forests would be a technological achievement, not a natural accident. A forest needs more than trees. It needs seasons that do not kill seedlings, soils that hold water and nutrients, pollination and seed dispersal pathways, and a stable atmosphere that supports long-term growth. On a newly altered world, none of that exists by default. You would have to build it. You would select species that can tolerate local gravity and light, and you would manage pests, microbes, and nutrient cycles deliberately. You might begin with sheltered groves inside vast enclosures, then expand outward as conditions stabilize. The first time a child could walk among tall trunks, hear leaves moving overhead, and smell living soil, it would represent more than greenery. It would represent decades of climate management and ecological design. The forest would be proof that the planet has crossed from engineered survival to self-supporting life. That is why it feels like a milestone worthy of awe. A forest is not just scenery. It is a functioning biosphere, and building one would mean the world is beginning to live on its own terms. Terraforming would change what home means across generations of settlers. For the first arrivals, home would be a habitat that must be checked, repaired, and protected. For their children, home might be streets under a shared roof, with gardens that feel ordinary. For their grandchildren, home could be the first time it is safe to step outside without a suit and breathe air that was built by people long gone. That shift would change identity in a way Earth has never experienced. You would not only live on a world, you would live inside a long project that is still unfolding. Traditions would form around maintenance seasons, shared power budgets, and the anniversaries of major climate milestones. Even grief and joy would be shaped by the environment you are still learning to trust. Terraforming is often described as changing a planet. It also changes the meaning of belonging, because the land itself is partly inherited design. Languages and cultures might diverge, shaped by new skies and gravity. Culture follows the body, and the body follows the environment. A population living under lower gravity would move differently, build differently, and play differently. Sports would evolve into new forms, because jumps last longer and throws travel farther. Workplaces would be designed around lighter loads, and safety norms would adapt to unfamiliar kinds of falls and collisions. Even language could shift, as new experiences demand new words. There would be terms for pressure zones, habitat districts, and whether that behaves unlike Earth's. Idioms would change too, because metaphors come from daily life. If you do not see rain for years, you stop using rain as your main symbol for bad luck. Cultural divergence would not require conflict. It would happen naturally, as generations grow up with different horizons, different risks, and different definitions of normal. Terraforming would create not only new landscapes, but new ways of being human. A terraformed world would need long-term stewardship, like a living promise. A stable climate is not a trophy you win once. It is a relationship you keep. Early on, a terraformed atmosphere would be vulnerable to imbalance. A few years of poor management could undo decades of progress, and some mistakes could take centuries to reverse. Stewardship would mean constant measurement, careful limits, and institutions built to outlast individuals. It would also mean humility, because ecosystems surprise you even on Earth. You would need protected zones for learning, strict controls on industrial emissions, and plans for emergencies that assume help is far away. Stewardship is also ethical. If you invite life to spread, you take responsibility for the conditions that life depends on. The most inspiring image is not a flag planted on a new world. It is a generation choosing to maintain a stable sky for strangers they will never meet, because they believe the future deserves breathing room. Even choosing a target world requires telescopes, chemistry, and careful humility. Before you change a world, you have to know what it is. That starts with remote clues. Telescopes can hint at atmosphere composition, temperature ranges, and the presence of clouds or hazes. Spectra can reveal gases that suggest volcanic activity, photochemistry, or even potential biosignatures that demand caution. Orbital surveys then add detail. You map minerals, search for water, and study how the atmosphere escapes or circulates. Each measurement narrows possibilities, and each measurement can also expose a deal-breaker. A world might have the wrong gravity, the wrong radiation environment, or a chemistry that corrodes everything you build. Humility matters because early impressions can mislead. A planet that looks promising from afar can reveal harsh realities up close. Target selection is therefore not a romantic choice. It is a scientific commitment, and the first act of stewardship is refusing to rush it. Terraforming begins with listening. Some exoplanets may be near-ready, needing only small nudges to bloom. In the galaxy, there may be worlds that are not perfect, yet are close enough, but modest changes could matter. A planet might already have a thick atmosphere, but the wrong balance of gases. It might be slightly too cold, yet able to warm if reflectivity is reduced, or if greenhouse chemistry is tuned. It might have water, yet need pressure adjustments to keep that water stable at the surface. The thrilling part is the idea of a marginally habitable world. It is not a blank slate, and it is not a nightmare. It is a place on the edge where the right interventions could turn occasional habitability into permanent habitability. These nudges would still be huge projects by human standards, yet they would be small compared to transforming a truly barren rock. It reframes terraforming as restoration rather than construction. You are not building a living world from nothing. You are helping a world cross a threshold it almost reached on its own. Others may be hopeless, with crushing pressure or sterilizing radiation. Not every world can be saved by clever engineering. Some have atmospheres so dense that pressures would destroy most structures, and removing that mass would be beyond practical energy budgets. Some sit under constant particle bombardment, where surface conditions remain hostile no matter how you adjust temperature. Others may lack key ingredients entirely, such as accessible water or stable compounds needed for long-term chemistry. Hopeless does not mean worthless. Such worlds can still be scientific treasures, revealing how planets fail, how atmospheres evolve, and how stars shape their neighborhoods. They can also serve as cautionary tales for Earth, showing what runaway greenhouse effects or atmospheric loss can look like when taken to extremes. This matters because it changes the conversation. Terraforming is not a guarantee. It is a selection problem and a constraint problem. The wonder is paired with restraint, because a wise civilization learns to recognize when the most responsible intervention is none at all. Terraforming ideas teach us Earth science, because Earth is our only example. Every terraforming plan forces you to ask why Earth works. Why does our atmosphere stay thick? Why does water remain liquid over most of the surface? Why are temperatures stable enough for forests and oceans to persist? When you try to recreate those conditions elsewhere, you are forced to identify the hidden supports. Plate tectonics cycles carbon through rock and air. Oceans store heat and drive weather. Life itself reshapes chemistry and creates feedback that can stabilize or destabilize the system. Thinking about terraforming turns those familiar facts into engineering requirements, which makes them easier to appreciate. It also reveals how interlocked the parts are. You cannot treat the sky, the sea, and the ground as separate projects. They are one machine with many gears. Terraforming is therefore a teacher. Even if we never transform another planet, the act of planning it sharpens our understanding of the planet we already depend on. It turns Earth into a reference world, and it helps us see what is rare about home. Every terraform plan is also a climate lesson for our own planet. When you design ways to warm a cold world, you learn how sensitive temperature is to reflectivity, greenhouse gases, and cloud behavior. When you design ways to cool a hot world, you learn how difficult it is to remove heat once it is trapped. Those lessons are not abstract. They mirror the same physics that governs Earth's climate. Terraforming also highlights timescales. Some changes are quick, like atmospheric mixing. Others are slow, like deep ocean responses and rock weathering. It shows why small changes in composition can have large impacts, and why feedback loops can amplify trends once they start. It also teaches caution with interventions, because complex systems can respond in unexpected ways. The most valuable takeaway is perspective. If making one planet habitable is astonishingly hard, then preserving the habitability we already have becomes even more precious. Terraforming does not distract from Earth. It can deepen the respect we owe it, because it reveals what it would cost to replace it. The ultimate challenge is making change reversible, in case we get it wrong. On Earth, mistakes can sometimes be repaired by stopping the cause and letting systems recover. On a new world, recovery may not be guaranteed. If you push a planet past a tipping point, it might settle into a new, stable state that is hard to escape. That is why reversibility becomes a central design value. You want controls that can be dialed back, like adjustable shading, regional habitat zoning, and staged rollouts that do not commit the whole world at once. You also want robust monitoring that catches drift early, before it becomes crisis. Reversibility is not only technical, it is political. It requires institutions that can admit error and change course without collapse or denial. The real drama is that the most tempting interventions are often the least reversible. Big releases, big impacts, and rapid warming create fast results, yet they also reduce options. Terraforming would test whether humanity can choose slower paths in exchange for safety, and whether we can treat uncertainty as a reason to be careful rather than bold. Terraforming is engineering with conscience, because worlds are not empty canvases. A planet may look silent, yet it holds history. Its rocks record impacts, volcanism, and ancient climates. Its chemistry may contain clues about how life could begin. It may even host hidden biology that we have not yet found. Changing such a world is therefore not like changing a vacant lot. It is more like altering a rare archive with consequences that cannot be undone. Conscience means asking what you might destroy while trying to build. It means weighing human survival against scientific discovery and weighing expansion against restraint. It also means planning for justice, because decisions made early will shape who benefits later. The most inspiring version of terraforming is not a rush for territory. It is a careful, transparent effort guided by ethics and evidence, where the goal is not only a breathable sky, but a responsible relationship with a world you did not create. If we ever become capable of true terraforming, the greatest proof of maturity will be how carefully we choose to use that power. As we come to the end of our journey through terraforming, you can feel how wide the idea really is. We wandered across frozen plains and thin skies, and we imagined warmth arriving by mirrors, chemistry, and patient design. We drifted over Titan's strange seas of methane, and we looked up at Venus's heavy air, where a city could float in a calmer layer of cloud. We listened to the quiet arguments between sunlight and reflectivity, between greenhouse gases and bright clouds, between oxygen in the air and minerals that want to steal it away. Again and again, the message was the same. A living world is not a single invention. It is a balance that must be built, protected, and renewed. And now, you can let those big thoughts become softer. You do not need to solve a planet tonight. You only need to rest. Let your jaw unclench. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Feel the weight of your body settling into the surface beneath you, as if gravity itself is doing a little caretaking. Let your breathing find a slow rhythm, steady and unhurried. If you enjoyed this sleepy voyage, you might tap like or subscribe, or leave a quiet comment for the community. It helps this channel reach more curious minds who need a calm place to land. And if you are still awake, there should be another video waiting on your screen, ready to carry you onward. For now, let the imagined worlds fade into the dark behind your eyelids. Let the night do its work. Sleep well, and good night.